Hey, what's going on? Good morning, good evening, wherever you guys are in the world. It's Michael Daly back at you guys and girls with another episode of the Real 1% Military to Civilian podcast. We got my boy Zach here today. He's an Army veteran. Small world, man. Like, we actually served at Fort Carson together and we're part of the same incident that we'll maybe touch on later if it comes up. But we didn't find out until after the fact, and we talked on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. So that's kind of funny. But a little bit about Zach. He grew up his whole life surrounded by people that served as paramedic and firefighters. Every male in his family was a firefighter, and he felt real pressured to, continue that life of service. So after high school, he worked on an ambulance in San Diego, which I'm sure he has plenty of stories about that. And he used to do medical aids until he felt like he needed more of a challenge. So at that point in life, he enlisted in the Army. He told me he went to the beautiful Fort Sill, man. I didn't know it was so beautiful out there. I wasn't so blessed to be out there. So, and he really said it was a shithole. But and he also went to for his AIT as he's a 68 whiskey, which is a combat medic. So I'm sure he has some great stories as well on that. He was stationed at Evans Army Hospital. That's Fort Carson, Colorado. And I actually looked up the reviews before we got on. It's rated 2.2, man, with 212 reviews. So I was going to ask you a little bit about that. Maybe it dropped off after you left or something, but we'll hit on that later. He actually got to go to Korea for 2 weeks every year for a training exercise where he said he drew enough blood to fill a swimming pool. So we'll also touch on that. After he got out the military, all that sounds awesome, traveling the world, saving lives, doing all this high-speed training, but the reality was after he got out of the military, he said he was no other income except the GI Bill. Okay. And he said he was really struggling, and it was like rice and beans struggling. So try to put that in context and paint a picture in your own mind. After he did a year of honing his skills for paramedic school, he said he thought he was burnt out and he wanted to open up a side business fixing cars, changing brakes, changing the fluids. And anyone that's used the GI Bill knows that it's not enough. Even if you go to school in New York, you might get $4,000 a month for rent, but that's not going to cover your whole expenses for the year, food, blah, blah, blah. You know how it goes. So after, doing the car thing, he's like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. So he made one flag for his garage, like woodworking. And after that, he posted the picture and blew up. He said his business literally exploded, and he didn't want to study medications, protocols, and he liked working with his hands. So he got a Sawzall, a drill, and those were the only two tools he had. Sounds like a damn military course, like give you a compass and say, here, go figure out how to get back. So he started with those two little tools, and his business exploded. After working on it for about 5 years, it became super overwhelming, and he wasn't charging enough. He was always 50 flags deep, which I'm sure he had crazy anxiety, and he had over 10,000 flags of experience. So later on, we're going to get to see some of his work. So you guys can go ahead and make that purchase for yourself or someone that you guys love. It's amazing. I have one. I purchased one a month ago. I haven't got it yet because I was sick, but I can't wait to pick mine up. A little bit about that. He's had flags delivered in 50 countries. But he worked so hard and he felt so much stress that he shut it down for a while. He also has a slew of information and knowledge in the personal training realm. He did got 60 people in the best shape of their lives, but he also felt burnt out, always taking Zoom meetings or, client calls here, there, and this. He probably wanted more control over his own life. So long story short, he reopened his business, and we're going to talk about that. And he's doing the flags again. He's sitting in a room full of them right now. You can't see him, but hopefully it gives us a sneak peek. And some of his goals is to, he said, do something that benefits yourself, build something, create something, whatever it is, to make you happy. Don't just do something to become a robot. So with all that, Zach, man, I hope I introduced you properly. And how you doing today?
Good, Michael. Thanks for having me on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thank you for being here. So you got done, we obviously know why you served. You seem like you wanted to bring that lineage with your family through, and you did that. Did you think you're going to stay in the Army for a long time, or was it kind of like a small commitment and get out and do something else with your life? What'd you have going on at first?
No, actually, initially I wanted to be a lifer.
Okay.
because all the other different careers that I've looked into, um, the the time needed to get a pension was usually 30 years, and
Right.
the military offers something totally different. They say, for the most part, people do their 20 and get out. Some people go a little bit longer because they really enjoy it, and then obviously there's those that get med boarded and taken out early. But initially, I was all for doing 20 years, and those things kind of change a little bit because you have this idea and perception about what you think the service is going to be like, and then once you actually get in there, you're just like, oh, this is a lot different, and there's always going to be somebody over you, and always telling you what to do, and it's just a matter of how well you can cope with that and how comfortable you are with the lifestyle and also the pay and benefits that you have. So yeah, I went into it thinking I was going to be in for life, and just do my 20 and be done, and then find something else to do afterwards. But yeah, just a couple bad NCOs, I think, is all it takes for some individuals to start reevaluating things. And then obviously the offers that they have at the end of your first 4 years, or however long your initial contract is. Sometimes those offers can be really nice. I've heard of people getting bonuses and getting to pick duty stations. Mine was either we can send you wherever we want, or we're going to reclass you. And that was pretty much it, because the medics were overstrength at that time. So yeah, it's a little different for everybody, but I kind of knew I wanted to get out about 3 years into my 4-year contract. And I think for a lot of younger guys, it's pretty relatable, because you're at that point, you're like, if I re-up again, I got to commit to another, 4 years. And by then you're 2 years away from the halfway point to your pension. So it's kind of like, it's a big decision if you decide to stay in during that first time. And I've heard from other people, it just gets easier to re-up the closer you get, to retirement. But yeah, that's the approach I took it. I wanted to stay in for longer, but a couple bad NCOs really is what did it for me. But everybody's experience is different.
No, absolutely. But those people make or break it for you, right, man? It's like when I was at Campbell, I had good leadership. And then when I got to Germany, I knew as soon as I got there, I was ready to get out. You know what I mean? Like you said, man, if you get them people around you, it's unfortunate, but it's the reality of it, man. It's not like, the army itself is a bad thing. It's a great stepping stone. It could be a great career. It could be it's what you make of it. But if you have those people above you and they make your life a living hell, I don't really think you're going to want to stay around too long, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
how many years did you end up doing?
I just did my 4 years,
Okay, so
and
you never,
basically the way. What's that?
let's say you never re-enlisted. You just did your initial contract, and about a year
Yeah,
out, you were pretty much ready to go.
yeah, I did, and then I knew there was the non-active ready reserves, which was part of my contract. I didn't have to show up for anything, but it was just knowing that they could call you back at any point during those 4 years. And then as soon as I remember getting the letter, it's like, you're fully discharged from your non-active ready reserve. I was like, all right, now I'm actually free, because there's always that thought. It's like, are they going to call me back? Like, I don't think they would. Maybe in the case of a war or some event, they would. But yeah, it was good to be free. I think it was a very freeing feeling.
Maybe now they might call you back, though. The numbers are dropping, man. And you would have had time left now. They might have hit you up, man. So yeah, that's good though.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting phone call.
You answer it, be like, no, I'm not answering, dude. I'm not answering.
Caller ID, Uncle Sam.
Yeah. U.S. Army Recruitment Depot. Dude, I've got hit up by recruiters and like, you want to still join? I'm like, did you guys not know I did 8 years? I'm like, you ever get hit up by a recruiter after you've been out trying to like get you to join the military, like never joined or something? Or no?
I haven't. No, I definitely haven't. But I got my recruiter chaptered out for fraudulent enlistment, which is a whole nother story. But yeah.
Episode two, man. And I'm gonna get your phone number and make sure that we get someone in touch with you, man. I know you want to get back in.
Yeah, I'm good where I'm at.
No, for sure. How was, like, obviously you had some medical background. You were working in the as an EMT before you went in. Now, how was the training when you went to Fort Sam? Was it pretty good? Was it, did you already have a lot of that background since you already had medical training, or how was that for you?
Yeah, so good question. So I was an EMT right after high school. I went and got my cert, and it just that was probably one of the most interesting classes that I'd ever taken because it felt like an elective more than anything. And you go through high school and you have to do all these other different arts and a second language and all these different things that maybe not be super appealing to you. But once you get out on your own and you start to get to pick and choose like what it is you want to do, I just gravitated towards that because I was always kind of fascinated with like trauma and like how to deal with it. And obviously growing up watching my father and my grandpa and my uncle and all these guys like and their stories that they presented, my dad would always have a story that he would bring home after the few days of work because they do 24-hour shifts. And I remember sitting around the dinner table and he'd always have like a really crazy story about something that he saw on shift. And granted, he kind of dumbed it down and made it more PG for us kids, but it was always really fascinating to hear what he was doing at work. So that was a really interesting class, and like even if you don't plan on becoming an EMT, it's I think it was generally easy, but also like very informative and just knowing some basic life skills in case something ever happens. So yeah, I got my EMT cert and I started working on an ambulance in San Diego County, just running general medical aid. Sometimes it'd be with a bridged ALS, BLS system. So I was the EMT and I'd ride with a medic. Sometimes we'd have critical care nurses that would jump on board with us, flight nurses. So there's all these other different tiers in the medical field that you get to work around, and you're always just kind of interested in what they're doing on the other side of their aisles. And yeah, so I heard about a couple different avenues of getting out of San Diego, and there's one of them which is paying your own trip to go somewhere else. And I was like, well, I didn't have a whole lot of money, and I don't know where I would go, but just something about joining the military sounded interesting. So I went down to the recruiter's office and I walked into the Marines recruiting office first. And I knew within a few minutes that wasn't for me. No offense to the Marines, but I was just looking for something a little different. And I walked into the Army one next because they usually have them all in the same building.
Right.
I walked over to the Army one and I said, hey, here's what I've got already. I got an EMT cert. Can you guys do anything with it? And they're like, yeah, we actually require our combat medics to go through an EMT phase and get nationally registered first. So I was like, well, I already have that. And they were like, okay, well, you're going to end up skipping that portion of the training and not going to the EMT portion, but you'll end up going to the whiskey phase out at Fort Sam. And yeah, that's essentially where the whole thing with the recruiter happened. He actually got chaptered out for not explaining to me that there is the acquired civilian skills program. Basically, if you have your EMT, you can go in as an E4 in the Army and you get to pick your choice of duty station. And he didn't disclose that to me. I had to find out on my own through my bunkmate in basic training.
Damn.
I basically asked the guy, how did you get your E4? Because he wasn't the brightest, but he said he had an EMT cert. And I asked him if he had done any, riding on ambulances or working for a company. And he just said, no, I did some volunteer work and that was it. And I was like, well, I should be the same rank as you. So basically, I snuck away from 95th. Shouldn't have. Ran across the tracks over to the reception battalion over there and walked over to finance and told them, I was like, this is really jacked up. Of course, they called my drill sergeant. They're like, hey, you got a boot on the loose out here and he doesn't have a battle buddy. So they got real pissed about that. But a couple phone calls and exchanges, I got called back in there and they were like, you're not going to want to talk to your recruiter anymore. And I was like, okay. I mean, I didn't really like the guy that much anyways, but why? And he said he's getting chaptered out for fraudulent enlistment. And he was a E6 with 12 years in and had a family. So it was a pretty rough moment, I'm sure, for him, but it's just kind of like just a reminder, always have that integrity, But yeah, so I ended up getting to the AIT portion, and they made me sit in it was like a 12 by 12 room, and there was one couch and a vending machine, and I didn't even have any cash.
Damn.
And you had to sit there all day, like for 2 weeks, until basically the next phase of whiskeys were done. So they were about 2.5 weeks. I just sat in this room all day, literally did nothing. And then I was finally able to go from Charlie company into the Bravo company and then go through whiskey phase. So it is kind of cool because you get to skip half of AIT if you have your EMT cert already, which is nice. And then you get to go right into all the cool stuff, which is the whiskey training, the endless IVs. You get to have your med bag with you and take that back. It's just a really cool training. Granted, we went at the hottest part of the year, so I think it was like mid-August in Texas. Even down there at Camp Bullis, the heat index was always like 115 plus. So that was definitely new for me. But overall, like I enjoyed the training. I enjoyed what I learned for it, and it really set me up for some good stuff in the future. So after EIT, they gave me the option of my duty station just because of that whole acquired civilian skills program, which is a huge perk because most people just go wherever they're told. So
Right.
the guy gave me Fort Carson, Alaska, and Germany as my 3 options, and the other two, the Alaska and Germany, those sounded pretty enticing. I don't know how well I can deal with like 23 hours of darkness and 23 hours of sunlight in Alaska. Like that's kind of different. And then all my buddies that had joined a year prior that I went to high school with said if you go to Germany, you'll either end up right in the sandbox right away, or they're demobilizing units over there, and you'll just end back up in the States anywhere. So I picked Fort Carson. My dad used to be big into like hunting and stuff, so he'd always come up to Colorado. And yeah, it was a good place. I got stationed at Evans Army Hospital down in the ER, and man, the stuff I saw there was just incredible. There was so much to learn and so much experience in trauma and wounds and cardiac and just unmeasurable amounts of stuff that I just kind of carry with me as a toolbox. And I did my 4 years there, and I actually wanted them to send me to paramedic school, and I knew there was a program for it. They would actually send you back to Fort Sam for the paramedic portion, but they just said they didn't have funding at the time. And I was like, okay, well, I really want to get my paramedic cert. And I was like, well, the easiest way now is probably to just get out and use the GI Bill. And, you know, some people have an idea about what they want to do after the service as far as like what they use their GI Bill on. And some people have absolutely no clue what they want to do, and they just kind of want to use it as a supplemental income. So I was 22, just getting out of the military, and maybe 23, and I had to figure out, you know, like how am I going to be able to live on my own now? I'm living away from my parents, and I don't have a job, and I was told that the GI Bill would supplement enough income, which is definitely not true. Like you said, especially in New York, you think you're getting paid enough, but there are these weird portions. And for anybody that hasn't used it, don't rely on it as your single income. Have a little backup plan or a side hustle. But there are periods in between semesters where you're waiting for those funds to kick back in.
Yeah,
And nobody told me that. So, you know, I was getting ready to expect a paycheck, and rent is due next week, and I didn't get it. And it just, it put me into a little bit of a pickle because paramedic school is absolutely full time. So much so that it's very difficult to have a job while going through that kind of study. So, yeah, so I wanted to start an automotive business, like you mentioned earlier. And realistically, my extent of like knowledge of vehicles isn't so great, but I knew how to do brake jobs and oil changes and like simple mechanic stuff like that. But I figured I could offset that little bit of income by doing stuff like that for people that I knew in the area. And I just remember I was like, I want a really patriotic garage, you know, like I want people to pull up and just have like a big flag off to the side and just like feel comfortable in my 1-car garage. And I remember making a flag. I'll have to dig up the photo later. But it was awful. It was a terrible looking flag, and it was made of just fence posts. And yeah, I only had a Sawzall and a drill, and that's probably why the flag looked the way it did, is because now they take some very special tools and blades to do. But I had made that flag for the wall and ended up getting 8 orders that night from just posting it on the internet, and I wasn't even looking to sell them. So yeah, things took off very quickly, and I started with 6-footers, 6-foot flags, which was
pretty big.
It's pretty
right?
large. Yeah, and it was basically I had to find a way to ship these. So I'd have to cut the flag in half from the back and then give them a pair of brackets to put the flag together when they got it. And I would build these giant exoskeleton like shipping containers for them, and they were just massive, and they cost $250 to ship, and
Damn.
it wasn't practical. So I had to figure out a way to make a smaller version, and even have a couple different sizes. But yeah, I think just in the beginning, trying to face those challenges of going way too large. I don't know. It was a little stressful because like I had never shipped stuff like this before. I've never built stuff like this before. How is it going to survive? Like I remember I was in class and FedEx called me, and they left me a voicemail. And nowadays you can read voicemails without even going into them. And it was like, hey, it's so and so down at the FedEx terminal. We need you to come by. And I was like, okay, it's right down the street from medic school. So after the school day was done, I went down there and I just found this flag like totally busted up, like a forklift ran over it 10 times. And yeah, so it was just like a lot of shipping issues at first and sizing problems. And I didn't have a website, I had no business cards. And yeah, it was just, I started taking custom orders like, hey, pitch me ideas. I'll build it for you. I'll figure out a way to build it for you. And it just kind of took off from there because I took the approach of building what the customer wanted rather than just building random stuff that I thought was cool. So yeah, I just remember my initial motto was, if you can dream it, I can build it. And I actually found out later on that Disney has a very similar model. I think it's like, if you can dream it or if you can imagine it or something like that. I was like, oh well, I don't want to rip Disney off, even though I thought of it originally without seeing that. But yeah, it just turned into custom orders and people asking me to do weird stuff and build crazy things, and I just got to refine my craft. And a lot of it's making mistakes, making mistakes building stuff and learning how to do things differently and more efficiently and make them look better. After 10,000 plus flags like that, you really start to get good at that. So my only regret is not starting a Splinter collection sooner.
Damn.
So yeah, so it kind of took a turn, from going from medicine to working with your hands, and kind of being in charge of your own destiny and not knowing where your next paycheck is coming from. And that's why I always use the term starving artist, because I had no money. I remember one time I was using a jigsaw, and I was just finishing up a project that would allow me to get my next paycheck. And I remember somehow the cord fell right in front of my jigsaw blade and cut my jigsaw. And I felt real embarrassed. I had to call my mom. I said, Mom, I got to finish this project so I can get paid, but I don't have any money to buy a jigsaw. And she fronted me the money. And so yeah, I was definitely in like a place where I had no financial stability. I didn't know what next month looked like. I did have days and months where I'd have to like tell my landlord, hey, I don't have the money quite yet. And like, thankfully he was a really cool dude, but it was very stressful in the beginning trying to learn this kind of stuff. And I think if you persevere and you do stick through those really hard times, there are always going to be good things on the other side if you have a good attitude towards it. If you start self-doubting and you know thinking that you could probably do something else, or just being down on yourself, like, those don't bring any positive thoughts, and they usually don't have any positive outcomes to go with it. So
Absolutely, you gotta have that mindset. You gotta have the right mindset, man. And really, you started, dude. Like, I used to always want to do a food truck, but I used to always think about everything that could go wrong, but instead of just doing it. So when I got done contracting, I just jumped into selling clothing because my friend and his wife were doing it in Texas. And I was like, fuck it, man. I'm gonna make it work too. But like, the moral of the story there is, you got to start somewhere, and it's never going to be the right time. There's always going to be something that's not going to be perfect, and but you did it. So good for you. And I want to rewind a little bit and ask you a couple of questions. First thing I wanted to ask you is, did you get your E4 as well when you
I
brought
did, yeah.
you got your rig? Okay.
Yeah. I went in as a fuzz, and granted, that was a dumb thing. I could have done the online stuff for the E1. Maybe I could have gotten another person to join for the E2. There's like a couple things you can do before to get all
Yeah.
the way up to E3, but I don't know. I just wasn't interested, man. I was so concerned about leaving quickly, and but I did end up getting my E4. I remember the guy at finance like flung it. He was on the phone, I guess, with Fort Knox, and he flung the rank across the room, and it hit me in the chest, and I picked it off the ground, and like it was the specialist rank, and I didn't know how to put it on, so I put it on towards me, and he's like, flip it around. So
What a promotion ceremony, dude. What a way to treat you, man. So that's like what
yeah.
you do when you get your rank taken. They take it off and throw it. And yeah, you got the opposite. What a promotion ceremony, man. Hell of a job. Dude,
Yeah, he
the crazy
also oh, I was gonna say also right after he threw the rank, he said, "What account do you want your back pay in?" And I said, "What is back pay?" And he's
right,
like, "Well, you should have been an E4 from the start. So
right.
if there's anybody that's going in, or if they hear this and they have any of the acquired civilian skills program prerequisites, just know, yeah, E4 is guaranteed, and choice of duty stations guaranteed too." I wish I would have known that. So
Dude, seriously, man, that's great information to put out there. I never even knew that. I didn't know. I knew you could rank up. I think I came in as an E2, maybe because someone else joined or whatever. Excuse me,
mhm.
but or you did the training or whatever the case might have been when that time. But as far as that recruiter goes, man, he probably did it to more people than you, dude, to be honest with you. And like you said, isn't integrity one of the Army values, dude? Like, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you're not taking nothing away from him. Just maybe they're trying to just go so fast and meet the quota or whatever. But you know, it's
Mhm.
I guess it's karma, whatever you want to call it. Not your fault. You were just looking out for yourself. I'd be pissed as hell if I was living with me and
Mhm.
you and you're E4 and you're saying, well, yeah, man, I did EMT, but I never really did anything. And meanwhile, I was working on an ambulance a whole year. I
Mhm.
would have marched over there and said something too. So,
Yeah, it was wild for sure.
what? Okay, so got a couple questions. Where did you get out? You got out of the Army from Carson, right? That's where
Mhm.
you ETS
Yep.
from. How was it? I did too, and I think we got it around the same time, if I'm not mistaken. But how was the whole process for you? Like the whole like whatever you want to call it, A cap. I think when we were in, right? What that look like, man?
It's I think that is also different for everybody because
Yeah,
there's like a roster where you have to go all over post, and anybody that's ever gotten out of the military knows it is a huge pain in the ass.
yeah,
And yeah, they just give you a whole sheet of like, hey, you got to go to finance, you got to go to CIF, you got to go to all these different places, and medical, and like, there was always something to do. You think it's going to be a quick process, but it just gets kind of drawn out for like 2 or 3 months.
yeah.
It wasn't that bad. Like, to me, it already felt like I had my foot halfway out the door already, and I was already starting to plan for school. And granted, I'd still be showing up for my shifts at the ER. Um, it was generally nice, just instead of being in the hospital, you got to go do out processing and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Um, but a couple things that I remember from that, for anybody that is either new to the military or is starting to join or whatever, like make sure you keep proper inventory of everything that you get issued. Even if it's something really stupid and you think that maybe somebody tells you you get to keep it afterwards, don't believe them, because there was a couple people. One kid I remember in specific down at CIF, and he was sitting there bawling his eyes out. He had $2,000 worth of gear that he doesn't know where it went. He lost it on deployment, and he didn't have the money for it. And I think they actually had to end up keeping him in for a couple weeks longer just to have him pay for all that gear he had lost. So yeah, definitely keeping track of your gear is a smart thing to do. Before you even, right after you get anything, like write your last name on it. Especially if it's a personal item or like your ACUs or your dress uniforms, like write your last name on your tags. If that stuff gets scattered into a pile, I don't know if yours ever did, but like the lockers were always getting broken into, and drill sergeants were throwing shit everywhere. And it's like now you got a mountain of clothes and you don't know whose is whose and what
Yeah.
gear belongs to what. And it's like, just write your last name on everything so that you know for sure it's yours, and just keep track of your gear, because that can definitely hinder you and kind of hit you with a bill that you weren't expecting upon exiting. Um, but otherwise, yeah, it was a nice time getting out and just the transition. I didn't have to go to the TAPS or the A cap or whatever it is. I was actually purposefully avoiding it because most of it is geared towards people that don't know what they want to do when they get out, and it's kind of like to help them get into like work environments and like figure out what they want to do. And I was already dead set on wanting to go to medic school afterwards, so I just avoided it as much as I could, and I actually ended up never having to do it. I don't know if it's like an actual requirement, but I was just really fixated on getting to medic school and just getting that started.
So did you stay around Fort Carson? You stayed around Fort Carson area, Colorado Springs, to do your medic school? You got all that lined up before you got out? Did you have anyone helping you, like say, hey, you got to go to get your certificate of eligibility, or did you just contact the school yourself and take matters into your own hands?
Yeah, so there's Pikes Peak. Now it's called State College, but it was community college back then. Yeah. And I just had went over there and I was like, hey, I'm looking at taking the paramedic course in the fall because the course is an entire year long. And then there's clinicals you have to do afterwards where you're actually working with different agencies. And clinicals are just a nice way to say volunteer work where you're not getting paid for anything. So I went to the college and I was like, hey, what do I need to dive into this medic school? And they were like, well, you need some prerequisites before. And I was like, okay, no big deal. So I had to get a couple of them. The first one was like a Microsoft class for all the different Microsoft programs. I had to do anatomy and physiology, which was depending on your teacher, it can be pretty tough because you do have to memorize all the different structures in the body, every fossa, every particle of bone. If there's an indent or a protruding piece, you have to know the names for like each one of them. So that class was pretty intense just because you have to, learn so many different terms and structures. And and then the last one after that, I think there was like 3 different classes, computer class, A&P, maybe it was only 2, but there was a couple I had to do afterwards just as prereqs. And I was getting paid through the GI Bill for them, but it really wasn't that much money at all. So there's a semester afterwards where, you're basically living on whatever savings you have. And maybe if you get a job immediately upon exiting. So.
Were you getting the Pell Grant? Did you know about that when you were going, or did you not really?
No, I just knew I had the GI Bill, and that's what I was gunning for. I might have gotten the Pell Grant, but it's been a minute since I've been in that area. So
I don't know. Yeah. So going back to one more thing in service, then we'll move ahead. I'm curious to know your like outlook or how the sick call stigma played an effect in like your military service. Were you ever hurt? Were you ever injured? And if you were, did you ever, get seen? You worked in the ER. Was that something that was like, your leader said, hey, if you guys ever get taken, if you ever get hurt, make sure you get it documented because you guys were in the medical field, or what'd that look like for you?
Yeah, there was always people that would tell you to get stuff documented just in case. One of my first injuries actually was in basic, and the guys on the other side of the bay, they were always hogging the fan. And like, you get 50 people cooped up in one room, that room is going to be blazing. So like, I was like, well, you guys got to share the fan, and like point it down the other alleyway sometimes. So I went and picked up the fan, and it's one of those big industrial ones that has the giant metal base plate around the bottom. And I was holding it like this and walking with it, and then I heard a pin drop, and the base plate disconnected from the fan itself, and like jackknifed under my toe and sent my toe like all the way up, my toenail. So yeah, I didn't say anything. I like just pushed my toenail down in pain, and like of course we get called out to the drill pad for something, and the drill sergeant was like, "Why are you doing one-legged push-ups?" I was like, I'm bleeding, drill sergeant. He's like, why? And I was like, you don't want to see it. And he's like, take your boot off right now. And like, he's like, yeah, you got to go to the hospital. So I ended up going to the hospital over there, and thankfully they were able to keep my toenail and stuff. But they had to remove a good portion of it. But that wasn't really something I was concerned about, like having an issue with later. Like my toenail's a little jacked up now, but not a big deal. There were a couple times where I did get sick in the hospital, and probably from being around patients and treating patients. like you name it. Like I had somebody with, I forget what the name of it is. It's basically a cerebral spinal fluid disease, meningitis. It's very,
Okay.
very infectious.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want is somebody coughing on you with meningitis. And they coughed like right into my face. And I was like, oh my
Okay.
gosh, I really hope I don't get this. But yeah, I got sick from a couple patients that I knew. Like, you're swabbing somebody's back of their throat to check them for strep or something, and they cough on you and you end up getting sick from it. But yeah, I was always actually treated in the ER, and I never actually went to a sick call unit because they were just so happy to take care of their own there. And, you had relationships with the PAs and the docs there, and you were pretty cool with them. So, but for the most part, I didn't really get sick much when I was in, or even injured for that matter.
That's good.
My feet were really the only thing that I think took a toll, and that kind of still bother me now. And that's just from walking on a hard floor for 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, and just never having them fully heal. And to this day, you ever see me in person, I'll be wearing some really funky shoes, the
What you wear?
Vibram the toe shoes, the Vibram Five
Oh
Fingers,
yeah. Yeah. It's supposed to be
and
real comfortable.
oh, they're super comfortable. And so at least in the process of trying to figure out what was wrong with my feet, I kept getting higher and higher arched shoes, and I thought that would take away the plantar fasciitis that I had. Actually, a lot of service members complain that they have plantar fasciitis, usually from the boots. Thankfully, a lot of the boots now are pretty comfortable, and I had the whole thing backwards for so long. So most of the time, if people have plantar fasciitis, they think, oh, I need to get a higher arch shoe in order to support the arch. But really, all that high arch does is cause your foot to be more lazy over time. So the treatment for it is actually to start wearing lower arch shoes where your foot is actually supporting itself and developing that musculature in there. So I wear real funky shoes now. I'm either doing that or I'm always in flip flops just because.
If you're in Florida, man, that's the shoe of choice down here, dude. Flip flops, man. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, I dig it. Yeah,
dude.
But other than that, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, my story is a little different than most. I know a lot of people have lots of issues upon exiting the service, but definitely get those things documented, keep them in a file, keep them locked up so that you can refer to them later. Because, like for instance, my feet, I was so fixated on getting out. I was like, oh, I don't have anything wrong with me. Like, I'm good. I just want to get out and just, rush it. And now it's biting me in the ass, and I can always go back and claim that was the cause of it, which I truly believe it is. But it's just some people make it out unscathed, and I felt like I really didn't have any problems. And I understand other people definitely have a much harder time when they're in, and their bodies have issues or they get trauma or whatever. So really just keep track of all that stuff and definitely keep it documented. Just in the case that you do want to reference that stuff in the future.
No, you're absolutely right, man. And so you probably never went to like a VSO before you got out then, right? I'm assuming, because you said you were in a rush. I did the same thing. I had the appointment to go in Colorado Springs, and I was like, I'm not going that. Man, I'm just ready to go, dude. So if you could go back again, would you have gone? And even if you would have got 10% or whatever, would you say, yeah, I'm going to go do this before I get out, make a time for the hour appointment?
Yeah, absolutely. Granted, I had just found those shoes out, and this was after months of sleeping in braces and trying different medications and anti-inflammatories, and even pending plantar fasciitis surgery where they cut the entire fascia. Like I wish I would have gone back and actually done something about that, because now I am 0%. And really nothing else is wrong with me, but my feet do hurt. And that interferes with my quality of life, especially when I'm out here building flags all day. So,
absolutely,
yeah, I would have gone back
for sure, and me too, honestly. And let me know if you need help, man. I'd be happy to help you, and get what you deserve, because you got it done while you're in the military. And the worst thing they can do is tell you 0% or not service connected, but the best thing, you could get a little something. And if you get 10%, you can get even eligible for different school benefits. And, it's different than the GI Bill, but that's a whole nother story. So I just want to let you know I'm here to help you if you need. So appreciate you sharing, man. Honestly, I'm not kind of like, you're vulnerable and you're being honest with everybody. And I know this is going to help somebody else that might be in the same scenario as you, working the Evans on their feet all day with maybe the same problem. And hopefully they can take this to heart and just take care of it while you're still in. Because once you get out and you're going to school all day for paramedics and, you're trying to figure out where your next meal is coming from, rice and beans, or like me living with my mom and dad and working these dead end jobs, you're either going to say you don't have time or I got to go to work, or it's going to be someone way else. So man, you're absolutely right. So let's talk a little bit about business. When you started getting like 50 flags deep, you're building all these flags, going all over the place, making everything happen. But you pretty much said you got like burnt out, and then you rekindled your love for the woodworking. What happened at first? Was it good, so busy, but then you're just like, no, I got to stop. What would that look like all for you?
It was kind of a mixture of things. In the beginning, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, and it just kind of developed into this thing where I became very good at it, and I felt kind of obligated in a way to share that talent with people. And I became very popular very quickly just because of the quality of work. And it was in some cases, very overwhelming, especially towards the end. One of the hardest problems with this is trying to hire somebody that can replicate your quality of work and the attention to detail that you have to these things. And unfortunately, nobody is ever going to think like you. So that made it difficult in itself, was hiring people to do the type of work I do. And another one, it's like I said earlier, when you do get super busy and you do get super popular for what you produce, more and more people want of it, and they want more of you and more of your time.
Right.
And there's certainly nothing wrong with that, but I always felt a kind of a confliction in my heart. Should I be charging more for these types of flags when I know they could probably go for less? But I know that the clientele that I was serving are all people on fixed income, police, fire, military, EMS. So I didn't want to feel like I was gouging people. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I also didn't want to have to turn people away to say, hey, I'm too busy or something like that. I just always took more orders, and especially around Christmas time, it would just get crazy. Like it's the giving season, and what better way to tell somebody that you appreciate them or get a gift for them that you can't buy on Amazon? You have something customized and personalized made for them. I think that pulls on heartstrings a little bit more than just something that you could go buy yourself. You know what I mean?
Right.
So Christmas seasons were just super busy. And I remember at one point I was up to I had 62 orders on the board, and it was December 1st. And, you're building 2 to 3 flags a day, and possibly some even more because of the Christmas shipping cutoff times. They're usually about December 12th or 13th is the last day you can ship something in order to guarantee it by Christmas Day. So all those orders had to go out first, and then you had the custom orders that would, trickle in over the next 2 weeks until Christmas Day. And every time I would just remember that month just flashing by. It would be December 25th, and I remember delivering pieces across town on Christmas Day and being like, where did this month go? I basically feel like I worked my life away and I didn't get to enjoy the season and the holidays with my family. And it was just kind of always go, go, go.
Yeah.
So I did get very burnout on it, and that's my fault for not regulating it. And I have a much better attitude now that I've got everything kicked back up, and I'm not afraid to charge more for a quality of work, to the point where I'm able to live comfortably and keep my lights on and pay my bills, but also still be able to provide the best flags, concealment cases, and coin holders you can get on the planet. So yeah, it's a delicate balance, and I would just say no amount of money is ever worth your well-being. And that could just go for anybody, whether they're just getting started in a business or maybe they've been doing business for a very long time. But money will never be more valuable to me than my own sanity and my own free time. And I just think that modality is something that I'll live by, even as I venture back into this.
Absolutely, man. Can you show some of your work real quick for everyone?
Yeah, I can just pick some of these up here. Let's see, what do we got here? Well, actually, I'll just take my computer around a little bit. So I just did a pour here, but here's a piece here. This is a
Venezuela and
concealment
US
case. Yeah, it's got them both together, and then this
Sick.
obviously has the concealment case underneath. And I don't have the locks on this one just yet, but outside of that, we got another concealed case over here.
Okay.
This is that version 2.0 Colonial Series. It's just got a really nice color scheme. We've got 2 patch series over here, the EGA and the Navy patch series in the version 1 Colonial. I made this one for a gentleman. He's in a motorcycle club. It's a coin holder. He's actually coming to pick it up today. And then I'll travel around over here a little bit so you can see these. I did one for Florida, obviously, because I live in Florida now. So it's
There
like
you
a
go.
Florida split. That one looks pretty cool. And then here's yours here. I know it's hard to see because it's in front of the window.
No, that's good. It looks real good.
We got a Colonial with the 101st Screaming Eagles on there. And I just started doing some smaller pieces. So I made a cross here. It's kind of real 3D looking. My wife helped me with the verse on there, which is cool. And then this was actually kind of neat. I've never seen this badge before. It's the Army Civilian Service Badge. And she actually works with MPs on post. So,
Okay.
yeah, I thought that was pretty neat. And some other patch series here, Army patch series, Air Force patch series. I always kind of keep those ones on hand just for like last minute ETS, PCS gifts.
Okay.
Got a coin holder over here in the corner, 2 coin holders. And then, yeah, this one here, actually, I made a post on Facebook 2 weeks ago, and I just said, hey, I want to honor some veterans that live in this area. And I had people put a bunch of nominations out there. And there's a dude out here that hooks up veterans with like horses for PTSD. And this guy doesn't know he's getting a flag yet, which is the coolest thing. But
Sick,
yeah,
dude.
he was one of the nominations that I picked. And then I'm going to be picking another one just because their story was really telling. So, yeah, all these things are handmade from scratch. And, you know, they do take me a long time to build, but I'm rather quick at them just because of the experience. But yeah, I've just really enjoyed.
You're a master now, dude. Come on, man. You put all the work in, bro. Yeah. And you upgraded your toolkit from. When did you upgrade your toolkit from the Sawzall and the jigsaw? When did you start? Did you start getting more stuff, tools and everything once you started getting more orders, or were you doing that stuff just with the bare bones at the same when you started?
When I started, I still just had the same 2 tools, but I would run into issues where I had to, I had to make sharper cuts with a miter saw, or I really needed to get an actual Sawzall, or I needed to get a skill saw to make perfect cuts. And then I would always take my profits and invest it back into the business. And that's pretty much what made the business grow to the rate it did, because towards the end there, I had, massive, large scale, large format printers. And I had CNC machines where I could have it dial in a perfect circle. I think it's still my crutch is like, I don't like cutting perfect circles out with a router. It's very technical, and one little move makes it shows up. So I just started putting all my money back into the business, and just growing the arsenal of tools, and then the tools would allow me to add different aspects to these pieces in whatever ways they are. So I sold all my tools and my equipment, and now I'm kind of starting in a similar way, but in a smarter fashion. I did put a bunch of tools on credit cards, and I've got a little mini shop out here with a Sawzall, a drill, a skill saw, a really nice miter saw for corner cuts, and then I've got a table saw, and that's all I have for right now, and I'm making it work. So realistically, Yeah, anybody that wants to get into any sort of business, like I would just say, start out with the cheapest tools you can possibly find. And
Absolutely.
you don't need to go overboard and you don't need to spend a bunch of money. Just get familiar with how they operate. And, when you're ready to cross over and start either doing things more precisely or more efficiently, then that's when it's warranted to spend that kind of money.
Absolutely, dude. Where can someone, we're going to put it in I'm going to get the link from you too, but where can someone find you if they want to connect with you and get something made?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have two avenues right now. I've been building out my website just to uh, make things a little easier so people can see some things. The only issue I'm running into the website is obviously anytime somebody orders a piece, that piece is going to be 100% different than any of the other ones. It's fully customized.
Right.
So a lot of the pieces that you'll see on there are just custom orders that I've done for other clients. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I can't list all 10,000 different pieces that I've done. So I list the bare bones minimums, the cool looking ones, the concealment cases, just to give you an idea. And then, in all reality, the best thing to do to place an order is actually just to either hit me up on my Facebook page, Heroic Hands Woodworks, or just go ahead and shoot me a text or call me 719-619-7073. And typically I can do a little guiding on what would look good, what size you should do, what kind of design elements that you can add to it, name plaques, pictures, really just anything. But I do like to have conversations about the piece and like what story you're trying to tell with it. Because I always think of these when I build these flags are probably going to outlast us. So these flags will
Yeah,
be here long after we're gone, and it's in some way or another you're leaving a legacy, like
yeah,
a
absolutely. That's what I was going to say.
tangible
Yeah,
art form.
absolutely. Go ahead.
Oh, so yeah, you're really just leaving a legacy, and it's like, what kind of legacy do you want to capture in that tangible art piece? Like, if you were to pass this on to your children or your great grandchildren, how would you want them to remember you by? And it gives them something physical and tangible to do that, which I think is really unique.
No, absolutely. And then I like what you said here. You said that the line of work honors other people by creating something tangible that they can look at and remember forever. Some of your goals are to be the best at your craft. You're always looking for ways to try new things or refine current skills that you have. I think that kind of attitude really sets people apart. I want to make more time for myself and self-care. How do you expect to show up for the rest of the world when you aren't completely taking care of yourself? And you're absolutely right, man. And dude, you're doing an awesome job, man. I remember when we first talked and you showed me some of your work, and I was like, man, this dude's badass, man. Like, I probably couldn't build a birdhouse if you gave me all this stuff and make it happen. But it's just not what my forte is, man. But that's the beauty of people. Everyone has different skill set. Everyone has a different gift, and you're definitely gifted, dude, in more ways than one. So I'm glad that you picked it back up and. Even though you got burnt out at first, you kind of like took a little breather and then sort of, rekindled. And I know your wife's been behind you and supporting you too, and that's awesome, dude. Because you don't want to do it yourself, right? Everyone wants someone, a significant other in their side, making them become the best version of yourself and their self. So good for you guys on doing that, man. And I look forward to hearing the orders pile in, man. We're in fourth quarter right now. This is when everyone starts spending, like you said, for the holidays are coming up. So hopefully you guys like Zach's work and you guys get your orders in, dude, because I can't wait to get mine up. And he can even put lights in the flags. He's like, dude, I could get, you get lights in there. So looking forward to it, man, because I just got my coins sitting on a little measly coin holder. So free up a little bit on my bookshelf and it'll give my house a little bit of flair. So looking forward to it, dude. So, and then you also said that you want to eventually employ veterans that also enjoy working with their hands. So if you guys are a veteran and you're around Ocala, man, maybe you can link up Zach and see if you got what it takes to be a part of his team, because we can't do it all by ourselves. You don't want to get 50 flags deep again, because I'm sure that same overwhelming pressure is going to set in. It's just the anxiety of having so much to do and not enough time, and everyone wants it, right away, right? It's like, so it said that it may give them a sense of purpose and feel like I was lacking for so many years. Also, the camaraderie amongst vets. So I feel like this would be a great working environment, and I do too. So you want to elaborate on any of that?
Yeah, so I do plan on hiring vets. Like, I want to have an all veteran staff here, and for those bragging rights to say, "Hey, you're 100% veteran owned and operated," I think is pretty cool. But yeah, like a lot of people, they don't really have an idea about what they want to do after the service, and I know I was right there. But yeah, working with your hands is one of the most rewarding things that I think I found. And it's just kind of, I know it's almost magical in a sense, and it's weird to describe it like that, but I was making some flags yesterday, and it was like everything is, my hands are moving automatically, like everything is just in a rhythm, and it's just every press and fold and cut, and like it's just it becomes kind of second nature, and it's almost enjoyable in some way to see what you can build literally from nothing. So I'm going to be building a shop eventually, so I'll have a big pole barn out here, and everything's going to be air conditioned because you know that
Shit,
Central
you need
Florida
that.
heat.
Yeah, you need that, dude.
And yeah, so I'll be building a good sized shop out here, and I want to make it large enough where I can have a showroom and have a drying room for resin epoxy and a cutting room where sawdust can be all over. And I'll probably have that within the next year because I'm just working out of a little canvas tent right now. It kind of reminds me of like the field days, like,
Pinion
but
Canyon? Down the
yeah,
Pinion.
it's hot. It's hot in there, man. So I want to be able to get a little more established, and just have a nice working environment for when I do pull the trigger and start opening my doors to have veterans work here. So I'll probably
So
be within a year, I'd say.
nothing wrong with that, dude. I look forward to coming up there and getting a
Mhm.
tour, man, one time. To looking forward to. I know you're going to do it, man. You got the dream. You got the dream. You got the vision. You taking that action. So respect to you for doing that. Most people can't get past a dream or don't even dream about big stuff. Dream as big as you want, man. If you want more than that, like you said, if you dream about it, you put it on paper, you get your mind to it, and you take action. Anything's possible, man. So hopefully you believe that and keep going after your dreams and goals. I want to touch back real quick on something I wanted to ask you about the military and 68 whiskey. Did you get to do the course on like the blood training when they do the live goats?
Yes, I did, and
How
I
was
think we
that?
were one of the last. We were one of the last rotations to go through there, before I think it was some animal rights activist program heard about it, and then they filed a petition. But yeah, it was pretty wild, man. Like essentially, you would just watch a DS walk up to a goat, and they would just snap their legs off, or even the pigs, they would just snap their legs off with bolt cutters,
Oh
and
my,
then they would just like throw an aid bag at you and say, "Hey, go treat it." Or they would just take a knife and they would just fillet an artery, like either in the
yeah,
groin or femoral, and it's like, hey, you got to do something with it now before the animal bleeds out. And these animals were fully conscious and fully aware, and I'm actually really glad that the military has moved away from doing those kind of things, even though it's incredibly valuable training and can help save a life. I'm actually entirely plant based, and it was more so for health initially. But yeah, I'm a full vegan, and I think animals feel and breathe and have thoughts just like we do, and I think that's probably just because I'm real compassionate. But yeah, it was just kind of a really gnarly training, but it was one of the only exercises where you're like, wow, this is the real deal,
yeah,
like this is, and it's a mess. It's an absolute mess.
I bet,
So,
dude. I bet.
but without that training, who knows? I just remember one guy walked into the ER at Evans one night, and this guy was hemorrhaging like crazy from he had some surgery on the upper part of his butt, and he just was super lethargic and white when he came in, and his pulses were absent. He was just about to pass out, and like was losing an active amount of blood, and I wouldn't have been able to treat him correctly if it weren't for my understanding of how to stop arterial pressures and like what you actually have to do for him. So it's valuable training, but I think there's so much high tech stuff now that you could bring into the equation to mimic or replicate a live animal without having to chop its legs off with it being alive. So
Absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of what do you think like the mortality rate for the animals were in that training? Like when you're going through it, did more survive or more die?
well, I don't know what they did with the animals after, but I'm guessing they probably euthanized them just because.
Down. Yeah.
Yeah, probably because they just can't. Trying to have a goat walk around with 2 legs is damn near impossible. And same thing with the pigs. It's like they would have to have special treatment and care afterwards. So I'm willing to bet that they were probably just euthanized and used for like food purposes or something like that. But I'm not quite sure.
Excuse me, probably right. Yeah, it's crazy though that you say that. Like you said, it's good training, but realistically, I mean, they even stopped doing like CLS because I remember when I first joined the Army, we were doing IVs as any MOS. I was a cook. It doesn't matter. You're doing nasopharyngeal, any MOS. Doesn't matter. Now they went away from that, I believe. I think both of them because I mean, I got my vein blue. You know what I'm saying? You got people that don't give a damn doing this shit and they just stick needle. You get in a catheter, try to get stuck in your vein, and you get your blown out or whatever. But the only real training that would make sense is like if you're a special forces medic. I know they send them to go work in all the ERs, like in Michigan, where all the stabbings are, but they're not going to send every 68 whiskey to all ERs all over the world to treat stabbing wounds. So I guess good training, but shitty on the animal's behalf. So
yeah, it definitely depends on the scope of practice. Because like when I was at Evans, we were able to do chest tubes and sutures and internal sutures. It just really depended on the comfortability that you had with the doctor that was there or the PA. And, if you felt confident enough in doing the required skill, and even though you're not certified like on a national level, you could still do that. Like EMTs on the civilian side technically can't do IVs, but through the military, it allows them to perform that skill. So I did see, I think like right as I got in, they were transitioning from instead of everybody doing IVs on each other, it was more of like a self-directed medic-led class where the medic could go through and kind of teach one-on-one with each person in the room. And there's definitely a benefit for it, but for the most part, people think if somebody's bleeding, they need an IV. If people are dehydrated, they need an IV. Like when most of the time they just need a cup of water. So there's a little bit of like IV abuse and a little bit of misunderstanding in that category because not everybody needs an IV, but in some cases it's beneficial to the patient. But yeah, we definitely had a large scope of practice in the military. So if you're looking for action, like a whiskey, they get to do a lot of stuff.
Absolutely, cool. Dude. Yeah, they got to do a lot of stuff, and that's a real important MOS. Whether you're on the line unit in the front lines, whether you're in the ER, wherever you are, man, you're saving lives. So respect to you and everybody else that's in that profession. What's one thing you miss about the military?
Well, I work from home now, so it's not exactly like I do miss working with other people. I miss. It's gonna sound weird, but I miss like packing my lunch and going to work. The commute was always nice because you got to have your coffee and listen to your music while you're going there, and it was kind of like the start of your day. And having group events and that kind of stuff is cool. But now it's just me and my radio in the shop, and sometimes it's nice. Sometimes I'm like, well, if I was working with other people, this would be cool. But I do miss the camaraderie, without a doubt, and just like the feeling of unison that you have when you're on a team. Even if you don't want to be there, it's still just a very comforting feeling. And I do miss to some degree the structure. We just talked about it recently, like having to wake up early. Sometimes in the military, it was by choice, and then other times you were being directed to do it. But I always seem to wake up earlier when I was in the service versus now.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a give or take.
Yeah, now you got an easy commute. You just got to wake up and walk into the backyard. You're good, dude. You ain't got to go to the gate. You don't have to rush to PT or nothing. But man, definitely the camaraderie is something I feel like everyone misses. And it's hard when you work by yourself because I'm doing my own thing too out of my house. So it's like, you don't really have anyone. You're probably doing more exciting tasks, selling clothing on eBay, obviously making stuff with your hands. But it gets I guess lonely at sometimes, but just try to connect with other people, and you're going to grow your business, dude. So you're going to find those veterans and you're going to make a great team. And I see you doing great things in the future. So I just wanted to ask one more thing, and then I'm gonna open it up to you for any closing remarks. What was your favorite food in the DFAC, and then what was your favorite MRE? You got anything that sticks out from the military that you missed?
Yeah, okay, so actually, the DFAC at the hospital was pretty nice. So
yeah, always
guys,
are. Those are hidden gems, dude. Hospital DFACs, hidden gems, folks. Get there.
Yeah, even if you gotta, I mean, I don't know if they take the meal card over there, but
Yeah,
most of the time you just had to pay for it. But the pizza there was phenomenal. They definitely did a really good job of that. Probably got me into too many troubles with calories. It was so good, but that was nice. And then I think as far as the MREs go, I didn't really have like a favorite, but I just knew that the vegetarian ones always had the best desserts. And
there you go, dude. That's the
know,
hidden secret right there,
yeah,
dude. No, you're like the second person that said that, and a lot of people say chili mac. I'm like, damn, you guys are loving that. And I used to be, I like the vegetarian too. You get the pound cake or like Skittles or whatever the case may be. So yeah, man, don't count out the vegetarian meal, man.
they're usually pretty tasty.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheese tortellini, dude, can't go wrong. Not a bad one. So I just want to open it up to you, man. First and foremost, I want to say thanks for coming on, sharing your story, being vulnerable, being honest, and just giving a wealth of information. I hope you had a good time talking about what you're doing, what you've overcame, and what you have yet to accomplish. But I just wanted to open it up to you and see if you had any closing remarks for anyone.
Yeah. First off, thanks for having me on the show, Michael, and giving other vets the avenue to share their stories and have intriguing questions come their way. And I just think it's a really cool thing, especially for like people like me in my case, where I'm trying to get my business off the ground. And advertising these days is seriously so expensive. And I was checking the other day, it's like you could reach 1,200 people for $20 or $30 on Facebook ads. And not a lot of people have any type of money at all to be investing in that stuff when they first start a business. So I want to say I appreciate you for even having this podcast in the first place and giving other vets the channel to talk about whatever it is that's on their mind. In this case, it's my woodworking. I just really appreciate that. I'm looking forward to the days when I do have more orders and I'm able to crank some more stuff out. And that's really it, man. I'm just really excited to be here and glad we got to do this. I'm looking forward to anything that comes of it.
Hey, for sure. Thanks to everyone for listening in, you guys. If you want to get some beautiful woodwork done for you, a loved one, a friend, or just point someone in the right direction to Zach, he said that his website is your Facebook, Heroic Hand Woodworks, and is your phone number, if I had it correct, 719-619-7073. Is that right?
Yep,
okay,
that's me.
And I'm gonna put it in the description on YouTube. And I just wanted to say thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening in. If you guys know a veteran or someone in the military that may need help, that has questions, send them my way. I'd be happy to have them on, share their stories. I feel like everyone has a voice, and that's something that a lot of people feel like they lose when they leave the military. Maybe you're stuck, maybe you're going through hardship, but that's not where you're supposed to be in life. We're supposed to go through a season of hardship or toughness, but we all have greatness within inside of us. So I hope you guys can harvest that and bring it out to your full and reach your full potential. So thank you all for listening in. Until next time, I hope you guys have a blessed day. Thanks a lot.